Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewarti. It's Wednesday, October 6th. This is Africa 54.
The World Food Programme warns of a possible catastrophe in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Tackling Nigeria's curable cancer killer. And Facebook is called on to answer criticism about the social media giant's negative impact.
The United Nations World Food Programme says it is struggling to deliver food aid to Ethiopia's Tigray region, where fighting erupted 11 months ago. Clara Frank has more.
For Nobit Sahile-Kide and her 7-year-old son, it's a welcome sight. Supplies of vegetable oil, wheat, and pulses. But the World Food Programme is warning that others in Ethiopia are facing a humanitarian catastrophe as it struggles to reach out to all those affected by the conflict that erupted out of Tigray. 11 months of violence have displaced more than 2 million people, including Nobit, who is now staying with distant relatives in the town of Debark. She says she and her 4 children traveled by foot to escape fighters, crossing a river that could have drowned them and hiding in villages along the way. Debark is located in Amhara, one of 2 regions, the other being Afar, where Tigray's conflict has spread. And those 2 regions are where the WFP said on Tuesday it had completed a first round of food distribution. WFP spokesperson Gemma Snowden said operations have been expanded as Tigray's conflict has spread in northern Ethiopia.
And it's absolutely vital that we're able to reach all of the communities where people are in need of food assistance before we have a humanitarian catastrophe on our hands.
But a lack of supplies and other issues caused by the conflict means distributions in Tigray are lagging. Last week, the UN's aid chief, Martin Griffiths, said he assumes famine has taken hold in Tigray. He said a nearly 3-month de facto blockade has restricted aid deliveries to 10% of what is needed. Ethiopia, which last week announced it was expelling 7 senior UN officials, has previously denied blocking food aid. Clara Frank, VOA News.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is expected to brief the Security Council Wednesday afternoon on the recent expulsion from Ethiopia of 7 senior UN aid officials. For more on what to expect from this meeting, joining me live from New York is VOA UN correspondent Margaret Bashir. Hello, Margaret.
Good afternoon, Esther.
This is the second council meeting on Ethiopia in less than a week. What are you hearing?
Yes, in about 2.5 hours, the council will meet. Secretary General Guterres will brief them. He's quite upset. He's quite shocked about the expulsion of the 7 senior aid officials last week by the Ethiopian government. The UN stands by their work there. They said they've acted with professionalism, with even-handedness, with impartiality. The government has accused them of diverting aid to the TPLF. As you mentioned in the package, the region of Tigray, many people in need, 5.2 million in need of aid, 400,000 already in famine-like conditions. So today I'm going to be listening to hear how strong the Secretary General is, if he's very critical of the Ethiopian government, his tone, what he says about replacing these aid officials because the work needs to go on. I'll also be listening to hear what Russia and China have to say because they have said that this is an internal affair, the situation in Tigray. So will they support action by the Council or will they block it if it comes to it? I'll be listening to the African members of the Council, Kenya, Niger, and Tunisia, to hear what they're going to say. As you know, the African Union has appointed the former president of Nigeria, Obasanjo, as their Horn of Africa envoy. So let's hear what he's been doing on this. And so it's going to be an interesting session, I think, this afternoon.
Do you know if there'll be like a Q&A with journalists? Are you likely to be able to ask any follow-up questions on this?
No, this is a meeting of the council. We're not in there. But sometimes ambassadors do speak to us on their way in or out of the meetings. And for sure, we will try and ask them all the relevant questions, including one of them, which is what's going to happen with this human rights abuses report that's due on November 1st. One of the UN officials who was expelled is from the Human Rights Office, and he was working with the with the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, and they were supposed to be tracking violations in Tigray by all parties to the conflict. So what's going to happen to this report that's due November 1st? That's one question a lot of diplomats have been asking.
And very briefly, Margaret, do we know if the 7 UN aid officials have left Ethiopia?
Yes, they left. They were out by Monday. We hear only 5 of them were actually in the country. 2 of them were outside the country at the time. But everybody is out now because their safety can't be guaranteed by the host government if the host government is hostile toward them.
Margaret, thank you so much for your insight. VOA's Margaret Bashir reporting live from the United Nations. Among the world leaders allegedly tied to secret stashes of wealth is Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. David Doyle of Reuters explains.
A massive dump of financial documents, dubbed the Pandora Papers, has allegedly tied world leaders to secret stores of wealth, and among them, Kenya's Uhuru Kenyatta and members of his family. According to Dungu Wainaina, Executive Director at the International Centre for Policy and Conflict, it's a blow to the president's credibility.
Uhuru thought that he had a clean hands, but essentially, we are not saying that because we need to prove where the entire of this money came from, how he acquired it, and the family how they acquired it. But the bottom line of it is this: his reputation and credibility is gone.
Kenyatta and 6 members of his family have been linked to 13 offshore companies, according to the documents. Investments include a company with stocks and bonds worth $30 million, according to the BBC, which added that the Kenyattas had not yet responded to requests for comment. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, a Washington-based network of reporters and media organizations, said the files are linked to around 35 current and former national leaders and more than 330 politicians and public officials in 91 countries and territories.
What these papers have done is actually to give us a snap view of what is out there. So people root here, rather than investing that money here, they take it out, but bring it back now as private investors. It's the same people in the same place using their possessions, but now coming back as private investors. So when you talk about private partnerships and you are not able to be told who are these private investors, then you start to get an idea who these private investors are.
Spokespeople and officials at Kenya's Tax Authority and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. There's a new tool in Ivory Coast being used in the fight against counterfeit pharmaceuticals. Yassine Chiu has more in this report, narrated by Lino Gahima.
This alley in Abidjan's Adjamé district is part of Roxy, West Africa's largest market for fake, substandard, or illegally distributed medicine. Awa Koulibaly says she's been selling pharmaceuticals here since August.
Medicines for fatigue, malaria, stomach pain, everything.
Here, shoppers look for medicine at bargain prices.
The pharmacy charges 6,000 francs for something I can get here for 4,500. When I don't have that much money, I come here. When I have enough, I buy from the pharmacy.
Wilfried Osso is among the estimated 40% of Ivorians who buy antibiotics, anti-malarias, and other medicines on the street. But there's no guarantee that products sold here contain the proper ingredients or incorrect amounts. The World Health Organization says roughly 1 in 10 medical products in low and middle income countries is substandard or potentially toxic. Ivorian authorities have closed the Roxy market several times to get counterfeit medicine off the street. To safeguard customers, the nearby Nouvelle Pharmacie Fraternité last year began using technology from the startup company Meditect. It tracks medicine from the source to the point of sale. Pharmacy assistant Ange Bouri demonstrates.
I scan the package with my phone's camera, and it tells me when the medicine arrived, where it came from, and how much is in stock.
A QR code verifies authenticity of the medication and traces its journey from laboratory to pharmacy. It also lists possible drug substitutions.
The prescribed medicine may be out of stock, but this app recommends good alternatives. I don't let the customer leave without medicine because out there he can meet ladies selling street drugs.
Meditect's smartphone app is available free to Ivory Coast pharmacists and patients. Right now, Meditect only authenticates medicine from its partner, the French pharmaceutical company UPSA. Meditect aims to extend its reach in sub-Saharan Africa, says co-founder Arnaud Pourredon.
We take advantage of the internet being everywhere throughout the entire sub-region. There is a very good penetration of smartphones as well. We come up with a solution that is mobile, that is digital. That is how we have a very strong impact.
Pourredon says Meditect's software not only can trace medications and monitor inventory, but it will also be able to monitor patients. This new digital solution will be introduced in January in Ivory Coast, Senegal, and Cameroon, and perhaps one day throughout French-speaking Africa. For Yassim Chiyoy in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, Lina Gahima, VOA News.
Poor access to screening and medicine contributes to 90% of deaths from cervical cancer, with the overwhelming burden of the disease in African countries. In Nigeria, organizations like the Race Foundation are offering free screenings in an effort to turn the tide. Here's Francis Maguire.
Cervical cancer is a curable killer. If caught and managed early, it's treatable, but the World Health Organization warns that poor access to screening and medicine contributes to 90% of deaths. And most of them are in Africa. In Nigeria, some organizations are trying to turn the tide by offering affordable screenings and free treatment. Dr. Amina Abubakar Bello is the founder of Nigeria's Raise Foundation.
It's a very conservative society. It's a place where you don't talk about such private matters outwardly. So a lot of women would keep those kind of private things to themselves. When they start having symptoms, they will not present on time.
The World Health Organization says all but one of the top 20 countries worldwide with the highest burden of cervical cancer in 2018 were in Africa. For that year, it reported 570,000 cases and 311,000 deaths. Almost all cases are linked to infection through sexual contact, and academic research consortium The Conversation says cervical cancer is Nigeria's second most common form of the disease. Veronica was treated at the Raise Foundation after she was found to have precancerous conditions.
Don't be scared, just come. I know it is not easy, but come and do your screening to know whether there's something there or not. If there's something, they will treat you immediately. They will take care of you.
Dr. Bello says Veronica's case underlines the importance of screenings.
So in Veronica's story, you have a good ending. And this is the kind of ending we want others to have.
Late last year, health ministers from the WHO's 190 member states backed a strategy to eliminate cervical cancer. The countries aim to vaccinate 90% of girls under 15 and identify and treat 70% of eligible women.
That was Francis Maguire of Reuters reporting. Three-year-old company Cocoa is using ATMs to dispense ethanol derived from agricultural waste. Its makers say the practice is safer and better for the environment and more cost-effective. Lucy Fielder has the details.
Large blue ATMs have been popping up across Nairobi, but they're not dispensing cash. Instead, they give out clean cooking fuel. The locally produced ethanol is both good for the environment and safer to use than traditional wood or kerosene, says Michael Wakoli, head of fuel operations at three-year-old company Cocoa.
I am using the waste of the product that was used to make sugar and molasses and so on to create something that I can still reutilize it again and recycle it. So all in a way to try and also meet up with the climatic requirements we have now, the climatic conditions now. We've known we have destroyed quite a bit of our forest coverage and so on and so forth.
Ethanol from agricultural waste is a greener alternative to using charcoal made from cutting down trees. The United Nations Environmental Programme also says sugarcane bioethanol can reduce emissions by 40 to 62% compared to petroleum-derived fuels. But for Faith Morar, one of Cocoa's around 200,000 customers, it's also about cost. A litre of kerosene in Nairobi costs just under 111 shillings, or approximately $1. But Cocoa sells a litre of its biofuel for just under 78 shillings. And the dispensers allow customers to fill up with smaller amounts using mobile money services.
It's really helped me because cooking gas costs me 1,000 Kenya shillings to refill, but with Cocoa I can get even 100 shillings worth of fuel.
Kenya has given ethanol producers, like Cocoa, who use sugar processing waste, an exemption from its 16% VAT. That's to encourage ethanol production to grow in tandem with the sugar industry, one of Kenya's common crops. Cocoa plans to expand to 10 other Kenyan towns in the near future. And the potential market is huge. Around 900 million people do not have access to clean cooking fuel, the United Nations says. The World Health Organization warns that's contributing to air pollution that causes hundreds of thousands of premature deaths on the continent each year.
Lucy Field of Reuters filed that report. Tell us what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, Facebook is again taking hit. A Wall Street Journal report cites internal knowledge of its harmful effects and the company's slow reaction to do anything about it. But first, Heidi Adams tells us what's coming up on Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
Be sure to join me on the next Straight Talk Africa. What does a free and fair election really look like? And what are the actual signs of a rigged voting system? We'll look at examples from across Africa, the Americas, and other parts of the world. And we'll examine whether complaints about elections and efforts to thwart voting rights can make people lose faith in democracy. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Lino Khmudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Facebook is in the hot seat again. A recent Wall Street Journal report cites internal knowledge of its harmful effects and the company's reticence to act. A whistleblower, a former Facebook employee, came out in public this week to testify against the social media giant, only adding to the scrutiny. VOA's Tina Trin reports.
Facebook, the social networking giant that also owns Instagram and WhatsApp, is in the spotlight once again.
I'm here today because I believe Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy.
Frances Haugen worked at Facebook for 2 years as a project manager, but has since become known as the Facebook whistleblower. On Tuesday, Haugen testified at a Senate hearing about what she says is an intentional lack of action and transparency by the company and its related apps, such as Instagram. She said Facebook algorithms tend to promote falsehoods faster than the truth, citing misinformation campaigns that have spread in the U.S. and abroad.
The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people.
According to Facebook's own study, 32% of teenage girls on Instagram said that when they felt bad about their bodies, the site made them feel worse.
Facebook knows that its amplification algorithms, things like engagement-based ranking on Instagram, can lead children from very innocuous topics like healthy recipes, just something innocent like healthy recipes, to anorexia promoting content over a very short period of time.
But Facebook says that Haugen only had a limited view of research and policy decisions at the social media firm and pointed that out during her testimony. Facebook's head of global safety appeared before senators last week.
Has Facebook ever found a change to its platform would potentially inflict harm on users, but move forward because the change would also grow users or increase revenue?
It's not been my experience at all at Facebook. We care deeply about the safety and security of the people on our platform. We've invested $12 billion in it. We have thousands and thousands of people working on this issue. That's just not how we would approach it.
We've had Facebook, in testimonies at hearings, also always saying they're going to do better, they're going to do different, and then they walk away and nothing happens or nothing majorly happens. And I think that this is the first time that that's being documented about all the things that they actually had information about, things that they could have done, and they just didn't do it.
Some are comparing Facebook to a pivotal moment in the cigarette industries.
Facebook and big tech are facing a big tobacco moment, a moment of reckoning. When we learned of those files that showed not only that big tobacco knew that its product caused cancer, but that they had done the research, they concealed the files.
It remains to be seen if lawmakers and regulators will act to curtail Facebook's alleged harm. And it's not clear how Facebook will respond, even if the calls for change originate from within. Tina Trin, VOA News.
Africa loses more than $88 billion of capital flight per year through illicit financial flows, according to a 2020 report published by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Ghana is among the nations struggling to fight illicit financials in the mining sector. Africa 54's technology correspondent Paul Ndiho spoke to Angela Alu, a PhD student in finance at the University of Ghana. She's also a lecturer at the Academic City University. Alu says technology, if used properly, can help to curb illicit financial flows.
Angela Alu, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are an emerging academic. You specialize in finance. Maybe bring us up to speed. What have you been up to?
I recently submitted my PhD thesis in finance, and then my research focused on measuring illicit financial flows and some specific commodities in Ghana. So one of the emerging issues with illicit financial flows has been even the measurement. So in general, it's been measured using a concept known as partner country trade gap method, where if I said I bought something from you, Paul, for maybe $10 or £10, obviously you should have sold it to me at £10 or $10. Sometimes, like, the discrepancies in prices are taken to be indicative of illicit financial flows, especially from the developing country perspective. There may be some incentive, if you want to call it that, for probably trying to either evade or avoid tax. Because when you compare your findings from the transaction level data with what you find with the with the partner country trade gap statistics, there are still a lot of discrepancy. Paul, could you believe that for some of my estimates, like for bauxite like this, you find that what is reported that has been exported from Ghana is literally half of what another country say they have imported.
When you talk about some of these illicit flows that are going on, you talked about bauxite. In some of your research work, I've seen also you talk about manganese, right? What have you been able to find out on the ground? Are most of these companies like local? Are they foreign companies? And how do they get these huge contracts?
many of the companies that operate in these areas tend to be foreign companies. And that's actually one of the like the big challenges for African countries, right? Or in this case, let me limit myself to Ghana, because you find that Ghana bauxite, Ghana manganese used to be owned by the states, right? But a lot happened over time, and then now many of these companies are foreign owned. So on one hand, you do not have the capacity as a country to perhaps mine on your own, because especially with mining, petroleum, and all of those things, you would need a lot of capital capital to even start with. And then our local companies don't have that kind of money, right? So then you have the foreign companies coming in. And then that's good in the sense that it's FDI that's coming in. But beyond that, are we as a country gaining as much as we should be from that? Because if you said you weren't going to let the companies come in because they are cheating you, then your natural resources aren't going to be touched, because like it or not, they come in, they create jobs, right, for people. They are mining the natural resources, and then there's some kind of revenue coming in.
In terms of technology, how can technology maybe play a role in trying to maybe iron out some of these things that you're talking about?
You can make use of technology, right, to do real-time monitoring of even some of these transactions. So it doesn't have to take researchers maybe years later to come and then find out some of these. Even more advanced software training might be necessary for those within the customs division and then other regulatory industries. And then if there was a way to even share the information, because you are comparing maybe, fine, it's true that they collect the data for different reasons, but if there were better ways of even sharing the information that the data that they are collecting, so that it doesn't seem like, okay, the Minerals Commission is collecting separate data, right? Maybe the Customs Division is collecting different data, the Bank of Ghana is collecting different data. If there was a way to, if there are ways of integrating all of the data that they are collecting, so yeah, I think those are some ways that technology could help.
Angela, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too, Paul.
That was Africa 54 tech correspondent Paul Ndiho speaking to Angela Alu. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.